Welcome back to the Big Lad Podcast. As I mentioned in the last episode, there's going to be a lot more solo episodes to come. Now, in this episode, I'm going to be speaking all about the Euros that have just finished. We're a week on, the dust has settled, and I'm just going to go over my thoughts of the tournament, England team, things that I enjoyed, and we'll just see where it goes. This is my first football-based podcast. I've had a lad on called Tom Woods, who used to play for Liverpool. That was a good episode. If you want to go and listen to that one, I think it was around episode 40, maybe 41. Should have checked this before we started it. But yeah, we're going to get into the Euros. I think as a whole, the tournament was really enjoyable to watch, other than England. And I'm not just saying that because we got beat. I just think our games were pretty dull to watch, other than very small moments. I actually really enjoyed watching the lesser nations. I think they gave it a really good go. They sort of showed what tournament football is all about, giving it a good crack and not leaving anything out there. I think the sort of better nations, the ones that are more expected to sort of challenge for it, take it not too seriously. That's the wrong word for it, because obviously it is the job at the end of the day. They're going to take it seriously. It's more the tactics. It's too tactically sort of dominated, I feel, instead of giving it that really good go. But yeah, like I say, I think the tournament as a whole was great to watch. Some of the games that I've noted here were like my favourites, and they are mainly the lesser teams. So we had like Turkey versus Georgia. There were some great goals in that game. Croatia, Albania, Austria, Netherlands, Georgia, Portugal. That was a big upset. Switzerland, Italy, Austria, Turkey. I think they were some of the most entertaining games. Some last-minute goals. It had everything. There was end-to-end, and you didn't know which way it was going to go at any point. But as a whole, I think Spain did fully deserve to win it. They were brilliant from start to finish. I said it quite early on. I think it's going to be Spain winning it. However, I do feel like, I know we give a lot of stick to Harry Kane, and I'll get onto that later in the podcast, but I feel like Morata was their version of Harry Kane. He did do a little bit more, so maybe I'm being a bit harsh, but yeah, I don't know. Spain fully deserved it. We'll get onto the final later in the podcast, but there's a few things I want to talk about, and it's mainly going to be England based. Now, we're a week on. This week, Southgate has left, which I think is the right choice. I think he's taken the squad as far as he can with his tactics. I don't think... Well, the only place he could go is to actually win them. And I feel like we should have in the past. Maybe not the Spain game, but with the squad that we've got, there is no reason we shouldn't have had a trophy in the last... I think it's 8 years he's been with us now. Don't get me wrong, he's taken us from a place where we weren't competing to get into a couple of finals and given us those moments. But in general, I think we've been really boring to watch. And I think that's because he's just far too negative and defensive. We've got some of the best attacking players on the planet, and we aren't utilising them to their ability. And the thing I really do not understand, and like I mentioned, tactically, I think we were just poor, like really poor. I don't get it, because most of the players in that team for their clubs will play a 4-3-3. So why are we trying to change the system to a different one that they're not used to? Surely it'd be easier to stick with the formation that they play in, week out, instead of playing players out of the position. Like, we played Phil Foden on the left wing when it's not his right place. We had Kieran Trippier playing left back. Again, he's not a left back. So I know we had a few injuries in that position, but I'll get onto a few of the individuals in a little bit. But it just makes no sense to me why he would try and play a different system to one that these players play in, week out. It'd be a case of just slotting the players in the right position. Now, obviously, they are incredibly talented people, and they probably should be able to fit into a different system, but it's clearly not worked. I know we've got to finals, but we've scraped our way there, and that's not the way we should be doing it with these players. Like, you look at the likes of Spain, they comfortably were winning games, be able to take players off, give people rests, and we just weren't doing that. Now, I don't want to be fully negative. But no one really in the tournament stood out for me for England other than Mark Gahey and maybe John Stones. I don't really think they put too many foot wrong. But Gahey really surprised me. He was pretty good. But I think the rest of the team as a whole, generally poor. Probably looking at like maybe a 5 out of 10. I don't think there was really any outstanding performances. There was like small moments, but yeah, it was another poor tournament from England. And I know we got to the final, which is crazy to say that, but we scraped our way there. We had one of the easiest routes to the final, other than maybe the Netherlands, who, again, I think were pretty poor in that game. So, yeah, like you look at Spain's route, they had to beat France and Germany on the way there. And yeah, it's not comparable. But I think the main thing is Harry Kane killed us once again. Just like he did at the World Cup, he offered absolutely nothing. Like, I know he scored that penalty. I don't even think it was a penalty. It was a bit of a soft one. Don't get me wrong, the lad can finish, but he can't do that if he's on the halfway line trying to get the ball to spray it out to the wing and then slowly jogs into the box. There was nothing in there for anyone to aim at. So, like, as much as we've been criticising the likes of maybe Saka and Foden for not playing too well, they've got nothing to aim into the box because Kane is 30 yards behind them. Now, there was rumours that he was still injured going into the tournament, which makes, again, no sense. Why would we play him if he's injured? We've got Ollie Watkins or Ivan Toney on the bench, who, when they came on, made an impact, made a difference. You look at that goal that Ollie Watkins scored against the Netherlands. One simple running behind, goal, last minute. So, yeah, I think, I don't know what it is. Maybe he needed someone up there supporting him, but it didn't work on his own because, like I say, he kept dropping back. And then once the ball gets sprayed out to the wings, there was nothing in the box. Like, you've got Bellingham having to try and make up ground. And yeah, it did not work. And I think the whole nation was saying the exact same thing. But for some reason, Southgate wasn't seeing it and kept playing him. I don't think he got out of second gear once. I don't think I saw a single sprint in behind. Now, I know he's not the fastest. I know he's not someone that generally makes runs in behind, but there was not a single, like, even attempt to make a run. And quite often he was touch tight to a centre half. So even when the ball does get played into him, there's not a lot he can do with it. But like I mentioned, Watkins proved it when he came on. Simple running behind. Last minute goal against Holland, because otherwise that was going to go to extra time again. I don't get why Watkins or Toney didn't get more game time because Kane just was not doing it. And then we'll move on to, like I mentioned before, Trippier playing out of position. Now, I know it's not his fault for being put left back, but he was injured for a large part of the season. And in general, I think he had a pretty poor season for Newcastle. So it was quite baffling that he was actually played there in the first place. Now, I know Luke Shaw was injured, and I'm not just saying this because I'm a Liverpool fan, but we had Joe Gomez there who'd played, I think the commentator said he played for Liverpool at left back 15 times this season, so he was proving that he could play in the position and he can also use his left foot, which Trippier wasn't. He didn't make one ball down the line. It was always coming back inside, so that was killing us again. So the fact that Joe Gomez didn't even get a sniff to play left back, even though he's proved that he could do it this season, again, bit of a weird one. He seems to have his favourites and he doesn't seem to want to sort of move away from them too much if they're available to play, which again was, I think, a problem with Southgate's approach to the Euros and just in general the England squad. And then we've got Trent. He was used as a bit of a scapegoat, I feel, in midfield. Now, as a Liverpool fan, I'm not really a fan of him being in midfield. I feel like he does a lot better playing right back where he's got the space and he has the vision to see the rest of the pitch. But again, Trent is in there to be a playmaker, to make those forward passes. Now, if we've not got Harry Kane spinning in the channels or a striker in general, then he's quite limited to what he can do. Now, we all know defensively he's not the strongest defender. It's a little bit strange, but his stats show differently for last season, especially compared to Kyle Walker. It showed he was a better defender by stats. There's other things that probably aren't taken into account, like things where he just lets his man run straight past him and that doesn't count towards a certain stat. But in general, in midfield, there's a bit more pressure. He's got his back to goal. And I think he's not really used to having that pressure, not knowing what's behind and what's coming. And I think there was a time in that first game where he did get it and he panicked a little bit on the ball, lost the ball, and I think it led to a chance. I can't remember what game it was. It maybe the Serbia won the first game. So, yeah, I was actually reasonably impressed with his performance against Denmark. And again, the stats didn't lie. He made the most chances in the game, despite only playing 55 minutes. He got dragged off for, I think, Conor Gallagher, of all people, who, again, I'm not even going to get onto him because he's an absolute waste of space and did nothing. But he was creating chances, and also defensively, he was breaking up play. I think he was just used as a bit of an excuse for Rice's poor performance. They were saying Rice was having to look after him, but Rice's performances didn't change once Trent was dropped out of the team. Rice, for me, was, again, another really poor performer in general. Didn't do too much either way, to be quite honest. But yeah, like I say, there's not many players that can come out of that tournament saying they've done a good job. You've got players like Watkins, Tony, Palmer, probably the only people that can sort of hold the head up high because they did make an impact, even though they've probably played about half an hour of football during the Euros, maybe slightly more. So yeah, there's not a lot that can come from it. But even with the left back situation as well, we changed the formation to go to wing backs. We could have played Anthony Gordon there instead of Trippier. We could have, there was Saka played there for a little bit. I'm not really sure. Apparently he used to play there. I'm not too familiar with it. But we could have played Anthony Gordon. He's got the engine to go up and down that wing all day long. And I think he played 5 minutes and he came on and again made an impact, created a chance. So we've got these Joe Gomez is a left-footed player, but Anthony Gordon he could have easily slotted in at left wing back, but we kept playing Kieran Trippier and he was doing nothing. He was making no impact. We're going to move on to the so-called golden child, Jude Bellingham, which I'll be honest, he is an incredible talent. He is. But at this Euros, I really was not a fan of him. And that stemmed from the first game against Serbia. He was trying to get the crowd going. He was clapping the crowd and intentionally barged into one of the players, which there was absolutely no need for. Now, I've spoke to a few of my mates. They've said, oh, no, I really like that. And I was like, well, when would you ever have seen the likes of Gerrard, Scholes, Lampard intentionally barging into someone? It was like arrogance. And he was giving it sort of the big I am, like I play for Real Madrid, which is, yeah, fair enough, you do. You've had a great season, but don't be a dick about it. Just have some sort of professionalism. I know he's only young and he'll probably learn as he goes on, but there's no need to be going around barging into people arrogantly like the way he was. Now, again, I think he was a relatively poor performer throughout the tournament. He didn't have that big of an impact and he looked like he was gassing pretty much every game around the 60, 70-minute mark. Now, of course, he's had a very long season for Real Madrid and he's probably had an intense training with England and then going into the Euros. But again, like I mentioned before, if we'd have played the right team in the right positions, we should have been dispatching some of these lesser teams 2 or 3-0 by maybe 60 minutes. You can take players off, rest them, and give other players a game and just keep the squad fresh. So yeah, Bellingham, I think, in the later games as well, he really was sort of gassing around the 60-minute mark and really having to dig deep. There's that overhead kick, and don't get me wrong, absolutely unbelievable goal in the last minutes of the game. But the celebration with Kane, for me, was genuinely embarrassing. They'd played awful for 95 minutes, and then they stood there doing this celebration in front of the crowd as if they'd just bagged a hat-trick against prime Brazil or Spain or something. It was a genuine poor performance. We were playing Slovakia. I think they were ranked 43rd or something like that going into the Euros. So, yeah, it was really quite embarrassing to play that poorly and then to act as if you've had an absolute worldie. Don't get me wrong, the goal, absolute worldie, unbelievable goal. But you can't celebrate in that manner when you've played poorly against a really low-ranked team in the Euros. that should have been an easy game, as should have some of the other games like Serbia. I can't even remember off the top of my head who else we played that was low ranked. But yeah, it goes back to just how tired some of the players looked. They've all had really long seasons. Obviously, quite a lot of them play at top clubs who have been going far in Europe, European competitions, and then domestic competitions as well. They just look tired coming towards the back end. And like I say, if we played in the correct system, we should have been dispatching some of these teams early doors and being able to bring on subs to keep the squad fresh instead of absolutely scraping through games. And then we also took Switzerland to pens. And now I think Switzerland overperformed. They were really sort of put together. Really actually enjoyed watching Switzerland. But again, it's a team that we shouldn't not necessarily struggle against, because I'm probably doing them a disservice. But it probably also shouldn't be getting to the point of pens against Switzerland. Now, I genuinely don't know who we get in to take us to that next level, to get us from this point. I think Southgate probably could have done if he just had the balls to just go for it. Like, we score a goal against Spain, we've got them on the ropes, and all of a sudden we're dropping off instead and going negative. The same happened against Italy. We went 1-0 up and we went on the defensive instead of capitalising on it and building on it, going and getting that second goal. He was just too negative. If he had the balls to just push a little bit harder, we could have potentially be talking like 2 trophies, potentially. Because the team we've got is an absolute joke. Now, I've heard on like other football podcasts that there's other nations wonder what the struggle is, because obviously a lot of these players play together and they say they would easily get in our squad. It's a case of the system that we're playing, and I think that's been a case probably with England as long as I've been watching them since I was a kid. Because we've had some unbelievable squads. You talk about that squad with Gerrard, Beckham, Rooney, Scholes, Lampard, Ferdinand, Terry. Like, that should have, like, I think, well, to be fair, around that time, I think the other nations were a lot better. But I think we're in a time where the likes of Germany, Italy, Spain probably aren't as good as they used to be, especially in that previous final against Italy. That was not an average Italy team, but it wasn't the best. We've got a world-class squad, and there is no reason why they can't be going and winning trophies. But I just don't know who we get in to take us to that next level, because there's talks of Eddie Howe and Graham Potter, and if anything, I think that squad then goes backwards. I think Eddie Howe's a good manager. I think Graham Potter's an all right manager. But on the international level, I don't really think they've got it to take us to that next level. And I don't think they've got necessarily the authority over those sorts of players to sort of kick them on and take them to where we not deserve to be, but where the nation wants them to be. Now, I've seen Gary Lineker sort of calling for, I don't think there's any chance. I think he absolutely hates the FA, and imagine having to deal with them on a national level. I don't think it would happen. My brother wants Jose Mourinho, because he just is. You can't lie, he's a serial winner. He wins trophies literally wherever he goes. So, I don't know. I think he would be very toxic in that dressing room. But the guy wins trophies. I don't think it'd be the prettiest football to watch, but Southgate football hasn't been great to watch. It has been pretty boring. It'd be on par with watching a chess match, if I'm quite honest. Like I mentioned in the previous podcast, I'm not like a huge England fan. Like, I'll watch tournament football. Obviously, I want them to win. I am English at the end of the day. But I've never been that sort of into watching them. Like, if there's a friendly on, probably won't watch it. Euro Nations coming up, not that fussed on it. Main thing I like about watching England, especially at tournament football, is that me and all the lads are all supporting the same team for a change. And we can go to the pub on like a Tuesday night and watch the England game. It's just another excuse to go out with the boys. Not that I need one, but yeah, it's a difficult one. I feel like the main sort of England fans are people that support lower league teams. That's what I seem to notice. But yeah, the main thing is just getting with the lads and being able to support the same team for a couple of weeks at least. We're not arguing, because like, I'm a Liverpool fan. Most of my mates are Everton or United fans. There's only a few of us that are actually Liverpool fans. So, yeah, it can be a bit tasty at times in the group chat, especially around that time when Liverpool were dispatching United for fun, scoring goals. But yeah, it's give and take. Like back in high school, I had to go through the Hodgson era where we were horrendous to watch, and United were winning everything. But yeah, it swings and roundabouts. But yeah, in terms of everything else in the Euros, I think it was a bit sad seeing some great players last international tournaments. Like Toni Kroos was completely retiring. His last kick of the game was a ball in to the box and ended up being the final whistle, last kick of his career. That was quite sad to see. I thought Ronaldo was a little bit embarrassing again, to be quite honest. He missed a penalty and was crying, but the game wasn't yet over. Yeah, bit of a weird one. I think Pepe as well was also retiring from international football. I don't know if Ronaldo has, but he's I think he's 37, 38. There's surely not got much left in him now. But like I said at the start of the podcast, I think as a whole, the Euros was a really enjoyable thing to watch. Like I was watching, I don't think there was many games that I missed. Like when the games were 2, 5 and 8, I think the only games I missed was a couple of 2 o'clock ones because I was working. But I watched near enough every 5 and 8 o'clock game. And then I think I watched all of the knockout games as well. Maybe missed like a half. So it's the most I've got involved in watching the tournament, I guess, since I was a bit younger. But yeah, like I say, it was an enjoyable tournament. Bit disappointing from the England side, but I went into that game, didn't think we'd get anything from it, to be quite honest, just because of the way we set up and how good Spain have actually been. So, World Cup comes in 2 years, we'll see what happens. Hopefully there's a few changes, because I think the likes of Kyle Walker, I think again he was pretty poor. 2 goals came from his side versus Spain. There was another couple of goals I think that also came from his side. I think defensively he wasn't actually great this time. Usually his pace gets him out of it, but I think defensively he just wasn't up to it. He is getting on, to be fair. He was probably a little bit better going forward against Spain, but again, like I say, both goals came from his side. So yeah, there's a few people that won't be in that squad in 2 years' time. Kane probably will. I think he's only like 30 now, so there's a chance he's going to be there, unfortunately, unless we can get some sort of young lad coming through in the next 2 years that's going to push him out of the squad. Trippier probably won't be there. John Stones potentially not. I think he's getting on a little bit. I don't know. But it'll be interesting to see what happens, see who comes in. That's the main one, I think. Now, I don't want to waffle on too much because I could carry on talking about how boring England are to watch. I don't want to bore you. So that is a roundup for that podcast. If you'd like me to speak about any other sort of footballing events, football in general, any other sports, let me know in the comments. I can potentially get some of the lads on and do like I have thought about calling it like I don't know, like a lads podcast on the Big Lad Podcast, just to get other people's opinions, have a little bit of a debate, talk about football topics and things that are going on. If that's something that you'd be interested in, let me know down below. If you've enjoyed this one, make sure you drop it a like or leave a review on whatever podcasting provider you are using. So if you're on YouTube, make sure you're subscribed and drop it a like. If you're on Spotify or Apple, make sure, again, you follow the podcast and drop it a review because it really helps push the podcast out to other people that may find it interesting. Now, I will catch you in the next one.